and welcome to Utah's Hogle Zoo. My name is Suzanne, and today we're going to be talking about food chains and food webs. I'm going to be building one here on the board behind me. If you want to build one too at home, you'll just need paper, pictures of animals or something to draw with, a marker, and some tape. And you'll be ready to go. If you want to grab those things, just hit pause, and then we'll get started. Everybody ready? Great. So today we're talking about food chains. Have you heard of the term food chain before? What is a food chain? A lot of people, when I ask them that question, they say, well, so this thing eats that thing, and then that thing gets eaten by something else. And you're not wrong, but it's a little more complicated than that, because why are all those things eating the other things? What are they getting from that food that they're eating? They get nutrition, they stay alive, but what they're really after is energy. So a food chain shows us how energy moves through an ecosystem from one organism to the next, because everything needs energy to live. So today when we look at our food chain, we're looking at how energy moves from one organism to the next. And where does this energy come from to begin with? The sun. The sun is where all of the energy for our food chains on Earth comes from. The sun shines down on the Earth, creates a lot of heat and light that things can use to make energy. So we're going to put the sun up on our board, and it's the beginning of our food chain. Now, what can use sunlight to make energy? I can't. I wish I could. That would be really efficient, but I can't. So what can? Plants, right? Plants can take the energy from the sun and they combine it with carbon dioxide and water and some nutrients from the soil, and they can make more plants. They can make food and they can make energy for themselves using the sunlight. So let's add the plant to our food chain, and we'll draw an arrow showing how energy is moving from the sun to the plants. Just like that. Now, the sun is not the only place the plant is getting things from. It's also getting nutrients from the soil, some minerals and things like that. So we're going to add soil as well. Now, plants are able to take that energy from the sun and produce food with it. So we call them producers on this level of our food chain. We have the sun, and then we have producers producing food from the sun. What comes after a producer? A consumer. Consumers eat the producers. That's where their food comes from. And what do we call an animal that gets its food from eating plants? Herbivores, right? Herbivores like giraffes. An herbivore is an animal that eats plants. So let's add him to our food chain. You could add any kind of herbivore, a cow or a squirrel or whatever you want, but I'm doing giraffes. And he gets his energy from the plant. Herbivores like giraffes are built just for eating plants. They have adaptations like these flat teeth in the back for chewing and these incisors up front for pulling leaves off of the bushes. They also have eyes on the sides of their heads so they can see if predators are sneaking up on them. They don't really need to be able to see the leaves in front of them because the leaves aren't going to run away. So they mainly have eyes out to the side. So an herbivore is built for eating plants, and they're an important part of our food chain. They're a primary consumer. They are the first level of consumers eating producers, and that's where they get their energy. Now let's look at secondary consumers. Secondary consumers eat primary consumers. They might eat the producers too. There's lots of different kinds of secondary consumers. One kind are meerkats. Meerkats are secondary consumers. Now, a meerkat's not going to eat a giraffe. That would be really weird. But he eats bugs that might be eating the plants. So there's a step in between him and the plants. That's what makes him secondary instead of primary. So he's a secondary consumer. Another type of secondary consumer is a jackal. A jackal is what we call an omnivore. An herbivore eats plants, an omnivore eats everything. And then something that only eats other animals we call a carnivore. And they have different adaptations too. The meerkats have eyes facing forward so they can see what they're trying to eat, and very sharp and pointy teeth to eat animals. Where a jackal This is a coyote skull, but they're a lot like jackals. The jackals are built for eating meat, but also other things as well, like berries or plants or whatever they come across. Omni means everything. They're an everything eater. So on our food web, or our food chain, they're secondary consumers. If they found a dead giraffe, they might nibble on that too. So they get their energy from other animals, though the jackal might also get some energy from the plants. And then what we have are our tertiary consumers. This is our level 3 consumer. They're eating the guys that eat the other guys that eat the plants. So that could be something like a lion. A lion is a tertiary consumer, level 3. And he gets his energy from eating, well, he could be eating pretty much anybody, couldn't he? But he doesn't eat the plants. He's a true carnivore. As you can see in his teeth, they're very sharp and pointy for eating meat. Even in the back, they're still sharp and pointy. These carnassial teeth in the back act like scissors that cut off chunks of meat that he can gulp down. Not a lot of chewing if you're a carnivore. So he's built for eating meat. And then, is that the end of our food chain? Everything in Africa just goes along until it gets eaten by a lion and then that's the end of it? No, it's the circle of life, right? Everything gets recycled in nature, and the animals that do that are called decomposers. This is a little picture of a millipede, and he's our decomposer. Anytime anything dies, it needs to get decomposed and broken down. So if the lion dies, or the meerkat, or the jackal, or the giraffe, or the grass, they can all be decomposed and their nutrients get returned to the soil. Decomposers are things like insects, fungi, bacteria, all the things that break things down so that the nutrients can be reused. This is a total food chain. It's got producers, consumers, and decomposers, and everything works together to keep all the nutrients and everything flowing through the ecosystem. The energy starts at the sun and makes its way through the whole system. It even can go back and forth like this because the meerkat might eat the bug. In fact, I have a bug to show you today. This is a giant African millipede. He's a little coiled up at the moment, but he's going to relax in just a second and come out and show his face. Giant African millipede is related to the millipedes you might see in your garden at home, but the ones in Utah, I've always seen really small ones, about as big around as a juice box straw, where in Africa, obviously, they can get a lot bigger. The giant African millipede coils up in a spiral for defense, with his head in the middle and his hard exoskeleton protecting him, and all of those legs just tucked in there really tight. But these guys are decomposers. They like to eat decaying plant matter mostly. And they're the recyclers of Africa. Any dead plant matter that falls on the ground, they will eat. And then they poop out millipede poop, which returns to the soil, and it's full of those nutrients and things that plants need. Plants and animals work together because the animals, even like giraffes, if they eat a plant seed, they may not digest it, and they'll poop it out later. And then the seed lands on the ground in the poop. The poop acts as fertilizer for the seed, and so the plant also benefits from the animal. It's not just a one-way street. In fact, it's not even really a chain, is it? It's a lot more complicated than that. In nature, it's never just one thing eats one thing eats one thing. It's a very complex web. Think of all the different kinds of things you ate today. Even if the only thing you like to eat is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you're still eating peanuts and wheat from the bread and strawberries in the jelly, so you're eating a variety of different things too, even if you think you're only eating one thing. So animals and plants all work together in a big food web, and they keep energy flowing through the ecosystem. But what would happen if something came out of balance in our system? If there's not enough water because of a drought? Well, if we don't have enough water, we won't have as many plants, and then the animals that eat plants won't do as well, and maybe they'll die. And at first that's really good for the carnivores, but then later they don't have more animals to eat. So one thing being thrown out of whack in our system can throw off the whole system. It's very important to have all the pieces working together to have a healthy food web. Thanks for joining me here today at Utah's Hogle Zoo, and go out and learn some new things. Thanks.